good, helpful advice, and always willing there to be there for support. So this is Christian Mitchell.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I'm Christian Mitchell. I'm the state representative of the 26th district. So I start in Streeterville downtown, and I go all the way down 92nd and Exchange in South Chicago. So very long, very skinny district. My office is in Bronzeville. It's where I live. It's also kind of the midpoint of the district. So I'm going to be pretty brief so y'all can have time to ask questions. I've been a state representative for 1 year. My 1 year anniversary was January 9th because of our 2-year term. We're going to try to make it a little longer than that next year. And I'm also going to turn off my phone. We're now free to move about the country. All right. So I've been a state rep for 1 year, and in that time we've gotten some things done that I'm very, very proud of. So I grew up as a child of a single mother, so I know I've seen the struggles a lot of people in this community and other communities have seen. We were able to pass Medicaid expansions when to make sure that poor folk who haven't normally had access to health care are going to have that kind of access. My mother's been a nurse for 30 years and I know precisely what that means. I also cared for 2 ailing grandparents, one with Alderman and one with heart disease when I was growing up, so I know what happens when you don't have health insurance and how difficult that can be for people. I live in Bronzeville, but I actually grew up in Maywood, which they used to call Murderwood, but they got much better since. But I hear gunshots at night, and I know what that's like. So we were very, very proud to pass a bill for universal background checks for private handgun sales. What often happens is folks go out to these gun shops in the south suburbs or in Indiana, they go buy a whole trunk full of guns, they come back, and they sell them on the street. And that's how they make their weapons. So now, for the first time, starting in January, if we find people who aren't making the background check that they should be making on that person before they hand off that gun, we can prosecute them and actually get them behind bars with the law. So those are just 2 things that I've been able to do in my first term. We have a lot more to do. We have more to do to change the way Chicago and Illinois funds their public schools so that regardless of your zip code, you get a high-quality education. I'm only standing here because of the education that I received. We have more to do on violence to ban assault weapons and make sure that we're making our streets safer. More to do in creating an economy that has widely shared prosperity by raising the minimum wage and making sure that we have really good jobs that everybody wants to work for. So with that, I'm going to be quiet because I'm preaching. And if there are any questions, I would love to answer. Thank you guys for having me.
You say that you draw sellers.
Yeah.
Is that interstate?
So that's going to be, so under Illinois state law, if I have a gun and I want to sell you my gun, I have to call the Illinois State Police to verify your firearm owner identification card, concealed carry card. If they don't have you on record and I sell you the gun anyway, I can have you criminally prosecuted.
So it's just Illinois.
So it's just Illinois, it's verification. I'd like it to be interstate because Indiana is where a lot of our guns come from. So like I think 40% or so of the firearms that are used in crimes in Illinois can be traced to some gun shops in the south suburbs, and another large chunk comes from Indiana because they don't have the background checks at gun shows. The gun show loophole, they call it nationally. They have that in Indiana, that's where most of the guns come from. Yes, sir.
I noticed that you kind of went out in front in favor of a progressive income tax.
Yeah.
And I see in the media that there's already a lot of people kind of lining up against that.
Yeah.
How do you see this fight for fair tax going, and how can we support you?
Well, I think we're going to win. So just so we understood, the question was about the fair income tax. So right now, Illinois is one of a very small number of states that has a flat tax. 2? Is it with that?
Well,
Indiana and Illinois.
More than that. So there's one of a number of very small number of states that have a flat tax. So everybody pays the quote-unquote state rate across the board, 5% of your income. The problem is that is a larger proportion of income for poor and working people than it is for those who have the most ability to pay. So what myself and others have said is we need to change our tax structure to make sure that the wealthy are paying their fair share. We can actually give working families a break. So under the structure that I'm proposing, 94% of people in Illinois, people under $250,000 a year, would get a tax break, and those over would pay a little bit more. And that's going to be crucial money we can invest in universal pre-K, that we can invest in after-school programs, that we can invest in infrastructure and technology. Now, in terms of how we get it done, the pushback has been, well, we raised taxes by 66% 2 years ago. You guys in Illinois said you were going to pay down these backlogs of unpaid bills. You haven't paid it down. Why would we give you more tax money? Well, that's what the pushback is. I think the answer to that is if you roll back the tax, so that the other conversation is do you let it go back to 3.75%? That's $5 billion. That's $5 billion out of a budget that we've already cut by 12% over the past 3 fiscal years. We've cut education by $800 million over the past 3 fiscal years. Before I got there, this budget actually held its steady. We've cut human services by, can't remember, but it's pretty large, it's like 9%. So the way we win this argument is by saying, look, any company, if you want to use the private sector, for example, understands you have to invest in education, you have to invest in research and development, you have to invest in infrastructure if you want to stay profitable. We have to do that in the state of Illinois. We passed pension reform, it was difficult, it was tough. I didn't want to do it, but it had to be done. That's going to save us about $1 billion. But then if you want to roll back the tax or not have a fair tax, you got to find another $4 billion in a budget we've already gutted to the bone. At some point, you're no longer cutting fat and waste and all those things, you're actually cutting bone. We have to explain to people, if you are willing, wealthy folks, to pay a little bit more, we're going to guarantee that kids are going to come into 3rd grade knowing how to read and learn. We're going to guarantee that if a kid graduates from high school, they're going to have the skills to either go to a 2-year vocational program or straight out to college. You are going to make sure your roads are structurally sound, your bridges are structurally sound, but we need your help. And I think when we can make a real tangible business case, that's how we win the argument. How you can support me, you should be calling your legislators, call our fellow legislators, call your alderman, who's already on board, don't worry about it, so don't bother her. But she's got enough calls, and they do. But call all those folks and say, hey, look, we need this to happen. This is something that makes sense. My kids should have the same opportunity as other kids. We need your help. That's what I was saying. Long answer to a short question. Christian. My name is Christian Mitchell. I'm a state representative in the 26th district, and I'm running for